Hi there, and welcome to this Grow with Google workshop, Negotiate Like a Pro. My name is Heather, and I'm a librarian with the Tates Creek branch of Lexington Public Library. Over the next hour or so, I'm going to teach you about the art of negotiation, including what it means to negotiate, why negotiation is useful, when negotiation is necessary, the basic steps to use when negotiating. We'll also discuss factors that affect your ability to negotiate effectively, like bias and discrimination, and how to have the confidence to negotiate. Then you'll research a situation you'll want to negotiate and organize your notes in a digital document. And finally, I'll give you some assignments so that you can continue to practice your new negotiation skills after the workshop is over. I believe it's important that more people feel comfortable negotiating when timing calls for it, and I'll explain why in a few minutes. Ready to get started? What it means to negotiate. Negotiating is when two or more people reach an agreement on a topic of discussion, a contract, or a price. Usually one of those people has the upper hand or the power in the discussion, and the other person is advocating for themselves to get a fair deal. Negotiation requires compromise, and someone might not get exactly what they want, but in the end, both people agree to the solution. But negotiation doesn't have to be hostile or leave one person feeling slighted or wronged. The agreement that's reached should be advantageous to both parties. So that's a lot of theory. Let's talk specifics. What are some things you can negotiate? The first thing most people think about when they hear the word negotiate is salary. For example, when interviewing for a new job, the hiring manager offers a salary to the candidate, and the candidate has to decide whether to ask for more money and how to make the case that they deserve it. Then, in turn, the hiring manager must decide whether the additional cost makes sense for the business. So negotiating the salary for a new job is important, but there are a lot of other things that may be negotiable. You might negotiate an hourly rate for a new job, an increased salary or hourly rate for an existing job. In other words, a raise. And other terms of a job offer, like vacation or sick time, flexible hours, remote work, a signing bonus, and reimbursements for expenses like college tuition, childcare, relocation, or commuting. Some personal negotiations include the price of a major purchase, like a house or a car, or a fee for a service you need or a service you provide, like those charged by general contractors, freelance writers or designers, mechanics, and lawyers. Finally, some smaller contracts you might not have known you could negotiate include things like your credit card interest rate or your rent. Of course, you can negotiate smaller purchases too, like secondhand furniture or the monthly fee for your gym membership. We're going to talk about many different situations during the workshop, but notice that negotiating isn't always about money. It's also about time, benefits, and quality of life. Keep in mind as you go into any situation where you need to advocate for yourself. For example, in salary negotiations, there may be extenuating circumstances for why a potential employer can't meet your request, like strict pay bans or budgetary limits. But they may be flexible on other terms of the offer, like working from home, flexible hours, or retirement benefits. This concept applies to other situations too. Maybe your gym can throw in a free massage or a monthly smoothie, even if they can't offer you a better monthly rate. Your next question might be, why should I negotiate? Negotiations can be uncomfortable conversations, and even with the best tactics, you may not get what you ask for. But they're still really important to attempt. The obvious reason for a salary negotiation is that if you negotiate a higher salary, you'll get more money. That's true, but it's also short-sighted. it's not just about this particular job. According to research done at Carnegie Mellon University, people who don't negotiate their first job offer earn $1 to $1.5 million less, the source is npr.org, than they could have over the span of their careers. That's an incredible deficit. Why is that the case? Because when you get promoted in your job later, or even move to a new company, your first salary sets the standard that your next salary is measured against. In some states, employers aren't allowed to ask what your current salary is before they offer you a job, but many do. Plus, your first salary is a mental benchmark for you specifically. If a hiring manager asks you what salary you're looking for, you might state a lower amount if you're accustomed to getting paid less already. The great thing about negotiating a salary at a new job, though, is that's an opportunity for you to immediately increase your earning potential, now and for the future. If you've done your research, we'll talk more about that later, you'll have the information you need to ask for the right number. Furthermore, hiring managers expect people to negotiate, so they generally offer a smaller number up front so there's room for a movement. Keep in mind, there's a reason they're offering you a job in the first place. They want you to work there. If you don't ask for more, you could be leaving money on the table that they were willing to give you anyway. There are other reasons to negotiate too. Persuasive skills are often cited by companies as important attributes in employees, so being comfortable with negotiating can make you more attractive as the job candidate as well. A sales manager might need to negotiate contracts, and an event planner might need to negotiate the cost for renting a venue. There are 4 steps to negotiating. Step 1 is to do your research. The best way to be prepared going into any negotiation is to research ahead of time. For example, if you're going to negotiate a starting salary at a new job, you need to know what other people in that role are paid on average so that you have a baseline number in mind. You can find this information in various ways. Start by searching online. You can find salary data provided by HR managers or from employees who anonymously post their salaries on websites like Glassdoor, Salary.com, Indeed, and PayScale. Or check the website for the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. You can even search job information on Google.com by typing in jobs near me or jobs with X salary in the search bar. You can learn more tips like this in our job workshop on g.co/grow-on-air. Use your job title, location, and experience, and any special skills you have to narrow your search. That will help you get an idea of the salary range. You can also ask others in the field, perhaps friends or colleagues, but know that for many people, discussing salaries is uncomfortable. Asking for a range can take some of the pressure off. Finally, make sure your roles are comparable. Your experience and your educational background is important here too. If you have 6 years of experience and you're comparing yourself to someone who's had the role for 12 years, you might be bringing different skills to a potential employer, so the pay might be different. Similarly, if you're looking for a new apartment and want to negotiate the rental price, find out what comparable apartments are going for in your area. Find this information on real estate websites by talking to listing agents or property management companies and by asking friends. Once you have a salary or rental price in mind, figure out what you'd like to ask for. Step 2 is clarify your goal. What do you want out of this negotiation? A raise? A new job title? A better price? When you've determined exactly what you're negotiating for, it's easier to focus on the actual process. Break down your goal into 3 categories. Number 1, what's your ideal outcome? In other words, what's your ideal salary or rent or monthly fee based on the research you've done? Remember, this should be attainable based on the numbers you've found online or heard from colleagues. Number 2, what's your bottom line? What is the lowest amount you'll accept for this job, or the highest amount you'll pay for your rent? Keep this number to yourself, but have it in the back of your mind during the process. Your bottom line should be an amount you'll be happy with, not one that will make you feel resentful. Use your own expenses as your guide. You don't want to agree to a number that will force you to look for another job with a better salary in 6 months. Make sure the number fits into your personal budget. And 3, what's your plan B? In other words, if you don't get what you want, what will you ask for or do instead? Let's say you want to negotiate a salary, but the hiring manager says that this is what they pay every person with this title and level of experience. Or they're acting within a strict salary band. As long as this is a number you can live with, what's something else you might consider asking for? Here are 2 good options for your backup plan. 1, ask for add-ons. What is something else that will improve your quality of life? For a job, you may want more vacation time. This is a perfectly reasonable thing to negotiate if they hold firm on the salary. Or 1 day per week working from home, if that's possible in your industry. There's also tuition reimbursement, childcare expenses, commuting cost, retirement matching, like a 401k, a signing bonus, and more. But don't try to ask for everything at once. That's why you create your backup plan ahead of time. Be sure to come prepared knowing all the things you want and think about what's your must-haves from that list. Consider what is most important to you after your best possible outcome. For a new apartment with a non-negotiable rent, maybe you ask the landlord to throw in free internet service or access to the backyard. Something else you could consider asking for is a contingency. If you're asking for a raise at your current job, your manager might want to tie it to a specific performance. In other words, if I achieve this goal, then I'll get this reward. For example, you might need to acquire a certain number of clients, reach a sales goal, or meet another benchmark that makes sense for the company, then ask your manager to reevaluate. At a new job, they may be willing to let you work from home 1 day per week after you've been employed for a year, so they can evaluate your productivity first. Decide whether this is an acceptable outcome for you. Similarly, maybe a new landlord will agree to you getting a dog after you've paid rent on time for 6 months. On the other hand, if you don't get what you want, whether it's your ideal salary or a flexible schedule, understand that you may need to walk away from the offer. Once you have your goal in mind, you can move on to step 3. Emphasize the benefit to them. In this step, instead of focusing on what makes you a unique candidate, you may want to describe how the other person will benefit. For example, if you're vying to rent a new apartment, you might want to tell the landlord how, as an employed professional, you always pay your rent on time. Or maybe you're less likely to move after the first year because you're settled in the area and have ties, which would save the landlord the headache of having to list the apartment for rent again next year. In other words, demonstrate that this is a win-win offer. You'll both be better off if you can compromise and come to an agreement. Another example, say you're asking your boss if you can start working from home part-time. Instead of explaining that you want the flexibility to pick your kids up from school at the end of the day, emphasize how much more productive you are from your home office, where your coworkers can't drop by for a chat at any time. Make it clear that if you're given this benefit, you'll produce better work for your team and the company overall. The same goes for getting that lease or securing a contract on a service. Perhaps if your contractor can agree to a slightly better deal on today's project, you'll hire them again in the future. You may need to do a little research to find out how the negotiation will benefit the other person. You might need to track your time for a couple of days in and out of the office if you're negotiating work-from-home privileges. Or you might need to figure out who else might be competing with you for the apartment you're after and figure out why you're a better tenant. The source of this is The Secrets of Success. Talk in terms of the other person's interest from the Dale Carnegie training. Finally, step 4, support your points with data. Your research on typical salaries in your area should give you enough data to support your salary request in a negotiation, but you might want to include other data like the value you add. For example, you increased subscriber retention by 50%, acquired 3 new clients every month of last year, or you wrote an additional 2,000 words on the day you worked from home. If you have a detailed resume, you may already have these statistics. As another example, if you're looking to purchase a house, you can provide the owner with a letter showing that you're pre-approved for the mortgage and can afford it. This way, when you put in an offer, it tells the seller you're likely to follow through with closing, which may give them peace of mind. Let's finish the workshop by discussing bias and how it works against you. Implicit bias can affect you during the negotiation process in a lot of ways. Implicit bias is a prejudice that someone has, but they're not aware of. We'll talk mostly about bias in salary negotiations here because that's where the studies have been done, but bias can be present in any type of negotiation. Let's start with gender bias. A commonly repeated statistic is that women earn less than men as a whole because they don't negotiate their job offers. Why? Because stereotypically women are perceived as disliking confrontation. This may be true to an extent, but it's more systemic than that. Research has shown hiring managers, both male and female, expect men to negotiate but dislike it when women do, because women who negotiate are seen as aggressive. Even more insidious in hiring is racial bias. There isn't as much research in pay disparity for people of color as there is for women in the workplace, but overall, there is a pay gap between black and white employees. A series of studies from MIT showed that hiring managers expected black applicants to negotiate less than white applicants. But after the interview process, the managers reported that the black job seekers negotiated more, despite white candidates negotiating equally. Furthermore, the black job seekers ended up with lower starting salaries because they were perceived as pushier. Of course, these aren't the only forms of bias. Some people can demonstrate prejudice against others for their disabilities, sexual orientation, religion, or any other number of factors. If you're a woman, a person of color, or a member of another underrepresented group, how do you prepare for this kind of situation? First, realize it's not your fault. The best way to avoid this type of bias is to seek out companies that publicize equitable hiring practices. During your application stage, check whether the company is an equal opportunity employer or an employer that pledges not to discriminate against workers for their race, color, religion, sex, including pregnancy, gender identity, and sexual orientation, national origin, age, 40 or older, disability, or genetic information. By law, these companies can't ask you personal questions like whether you have children during the interview process, including the negotiation stage. If an employer asks an outright biased question or makes you feel uncomfortable for any reason, it's a definite sign that you should walk away from the conversation. Another way to avoid companies with biased hiring practices is to network with colleagues with similar roles. That way, you'll have a better understanding of company culture and the way management treats its employees, including their salary ranges. Again, the onus shouldn't be on you to change or meet narrow expectations. If at any time you feel discriminated against, you should leave the meeting. You can also file a claim with the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. The best way to improve your negotiation skills is to practice. So that's what we're going to do now. It's your turn to prepare to negotiate. First, let's answer the question, when do you negotiate? Choose the right time. We've talked about negotiating salary, but when does that happen? It's not wise to try to negotiate your salary during your first interview with the company, unless the hiring manager brings it up. Wait until they've offered you the job before you start to talk salary. Don't wait too long either. If you've already signed a contract, it's usually too late. Choose the right opportunity. Keep in mind, not every job offer or rental agreement is meant to be negotiated. For example, some companies hire a group right out of college and pay them the same salary. In real estate, some years are buyer's markets and some years are seller's markets. If you're trying to buy a home at a time when there's a ton of houses for sale, you'll probably have good luck negotiating. If there's only one house available in a coveted neighborhood, it will probably sell quickly. In that case, you probably don't have the upper hand and it won't benefit you to negotiate. Remember, your goal is to buy the house in this situation, so you may need to make compromises. Finally, make the effort worth the payoff. You want to be respectful of the person you're negotiating with. When it comes to negotiating with a small business that might be struggling because of economic circumstances, use your best judgment. Don't haggle just for the sake of it. Be sure you're asking for something you generally want. Now let's practice negotiating. First, decide what you want to negotiate. Pick something that has slightly higher stakes or is important to you, like renting a new apartment, buying a car, or asking for a raise at your current job. The examples I'm going to use are about a new job, but feel free to substitute the information that makes sense to you. Here's the scenario. Imagine you've been offered a job at a new company with a slightly better title than what you have currently. You're scheduled to meet with HR to discuss terms, including the salary and benefits. How do you prepare to negotiate this situation? To prepare for the negotiation, you need research. Compiling this ahead of time will help you frame your conversation and give you the data you need to make your case. You have your research, so you're ready to go into the negotiation, prepared to ask for a specific salary, rent, or price and defend your choice. But negotiation isn't just about the numbers, of course. It's also a mental game. Many people, even those who know exactly what goal they want to meet, find negotiations nerve-wracking. That's why a lot of people avoid it. But that's a mistake. Just as you can prepare for your conversation with data, you can prepare mentally too. Follow these steps. 1, list your talking points. The research you've prepared will go a long way in your discussion, but you'll need other talking points too. Consider writing a loose script to begin the negotiation with. It doesn't need to be something you memorize or bring to the meeting, but outlining what you'll say with some exact phrasing will likely help you feel more comfortable when the meeting begins. 2, recognize the worst-case scenario. It's okay to be a little uncomfortable with the negotiation process, but consider this. What's the worst that could happen? The worst case scenario for most people would be that the hiring manager rescinds the offer or laughs you out of the room. That's always possible, but it's unlikely, especially if your offer is grounded in research. Remember, they offered you the position for a reason. They like you and think you'll be a valuable addition to the team. So unless you're on completely different pages when it comes to the salary and benefits, They probably want to reach an agreement as much as you do. 3, identify your nervous habits. When we're uncomfortable, we change our body language or voices. Think about what you do when you're nervous, like tapping your pen, picking your nails, or speaking extra fast. Write yourself an encouraging note to remember to breathe and slow down, and refer to it during the negotiation, or bring a notebook to occupy your hands. You've prepared your research and your mental game. Now it's time to negotiate. Let's go through a real conversation, step by step. Before you go into the meeting or start the phone call, take a moment to collect yourself. There's a lot of research around how our body language can affect our confidence. Before your negotiation, try breaking into a power pose. Try it now. Stand up straight, put your hands on your hips, and hold your chest high. Take a couple of deep breaths. Feeling powerful in the moments before a negotiation can be the mental encouragement we need to start that tough conversation. Can't hurt to try. Then demonstrate confidence when you're in the meeting too. Be aware of your body language. Sit up straight and make eye contact. You want to convey confidence, but you don't want the other person to feel attacked. This is true even if you're negotiating over the phone. Nervousness and discomfort can often be heard in our voices. Then have a conversation. Start by saying thank you for the offer or the opportunity. Make small talk if it makes sense in the situation. Then reiterate your interest in the focus of your negotiation. For example, if you're negotiating a salary, start by thanking the HR manager for the job offer. Next, if you're feeling edgy or nervous, make a little small talk, especially if you've never met the other person. A friendly chat can help establish some goodwill and diffuse your nerves. You might ask about the person's weekend or comment on the weather. It may seem silly, but showing genuine interest in the person builds a connection. Then reiterate how much you'd like to join the team. You want them to know you're genuinely excited about the job and want to reach an agreement that benefits everyone. Remember, this might be your future boss or HR manager, so you want to make a good impression. Finally, be clear about what you want. If they emailed you the salary number ahead of time, then you'll know going into the conversation what you want to ask for next. If they've only expressed interest in hiring you without giving you a number, let them take the lead. Now, take a moment to consider the offer. Once they've made the offer and told you the salary, give yourself some time to think about it. Breathe deeply as you consider the offer and compare it to your research and the bottom line you've constructed earlier. It's a big decision that you don't need to make quickly. Then encourage them to speak first. You'll need a second to think about your next step at this point, but staying silent can sometimes lead the other person to make a better offer to avoid feeling uncomfortable. Silence also keeps you from seeming too eager to make an agreement. If they make an offer that doesn't match your ideal number, you might pause and say something like, that wasn't what I was expecting based on my research. On the other hand, if they ask you what salary you're looking for, it's fine to respond with a question. What have you budgeted for this position? This might feel scary or uncomfortable, but the person you're negotiating with probably has a best offer in mind too. Encourage them to say it. Next, use neutral language. Don't accuse anyone of trying to underpay or offend you. Demonstrate the value you'll bring. Don't focus on what you think you deserve. Keep your language neutral, not accusatory. Unless the hiring manager says something overtly sexist or racist, remain polite throughout the conversation. This is true when you're negotiating with customer service agents or potential landlords as well. It's easy to become defensive when you think you're being overcharged or underpaid, but recognize they're doing their job to meet a budget or work with constraints beyond their control. You can still advocate for yourself while remaining cordial. In any negotiation, there might be a time where you need to use your backup plan. If their first offer is firm, come back with your contingencies, and see what else you can get. What do you think would make a good backup plan for any situation? Finally, mentally prepare yourself for the idea that you may need to decline the offer and walk away. That's why you came up with a bottom line earlier in the research process. If the company can't meet your minimum demands for whatever reason, it's okay to find something that works better for you. For example, if the salary a company is offering won't cover the cost of your childcare or rent, then it may not be a good enough option for you. The same goes for an apartment you're renting or a monthly fee for a service. If the cost is out of your budget, you don't need to put yourself through financial hardship. It's okay to look elsewhere for that job or apartment, even if that realization is profoundly disappointing. However, please remember that every decision and situation is personal. You know your needs best. So to recap, step 1, do your research. Step 2, clarify your goal, including your ideal number, your bottom line, and your backup plan. Step 3, emphasize the benefit to them. And step 4, support your points with data. And some key phrases you might want to use in your conversation. Are you willing to be flexible on benefits or any other related subject instead? Because of my experience and education. That wasn't what I was expecting based on my research. What is your policy on? And I really appreciate you working with me. Now that you have the tools to negotiate a major milestone like a job offer, it's time to practice your skills in the real world. But you don't need to go to a job interview to learn to negotiate in real life. Your assignment after this workshop is to start small. Pick a low-stakes situation like the sales price on a pair of shoes, used furniture, or a gym membership, or anything else with a flexible price. Then negotiate the cost so you can practice all of the steps we discussed in the workshop today. That way, you can get comfortable negotiating when the situation isn't emotionally fraught. If you end up having to walk away from the conversation, it's truly not a big deal. Hopefully, you'll get to experience the best possible outcome, getting exactly what you want. But if you experience the worst case scenario and have to cancel your cable subscription, it's not going to affect your life in a significant way. You'll get to try out the negotiation process, but without the repercussions of asking for a raise or changing jobs. So get started. List a few potential situations to negotiate, write a script, and make the call. After the conversation's over, reflect on the experience. You may even want to record your impressions in your document. What are you proud of? What could have been better? What surprised you? Then try again. Negotiate the next thing on your list. The more you do it, the more comfortable you'll get with the conversation. Then, when you're ready to ask for something major, you'll be ready. During this workshop, we learned what it means to negotiate, why negotiation is useful, and when negotiation is necessary. We discussed the basic steps to use when negotiating and factors that affect your ability to negotiate effectively, like bias and discrimination. You learned how to prepare mentally so you'll have the confidence for the conversation. You created a document to record your research and a potential situation you'd like to negotiate. You include goal numbers, your backup plan, and your talking points. You learned about avoiding bias in negotiations, and we showed you negotiation in action. And finally, you received your assignment for practicing your negotiation skills in the real world. If you enjoy video lessons, subscribe to the Grow with Google YouTube channel at youtube.com/growwithgoogle. The channel publishes a new video every Thursday covering topics that can help you grow your skills, careers, and businesses. If you're looking to start a new career and land a competitively paid job or build skills to grow in your career, check out Google Career Certificates. Google Career Certificates can give you a path to in-demand jobs with top employers that are currently hiring. You can earn a certificate and prepare for a new career in a high-growth field in under 6 months, even if you don't have relevant experience. Learn at your own pace and complete the online program at your own terms. Certificates are available for IT support, project management, UX design, data analytics, and digital marketing and e-commerce. Get started at grow.google/certificates. Also, U.S. businesses can get up to 500 scholarships each to Google Career Certificates to train their employees. These scholarships are worth up to $100,000 in workforce training per American company. Here's the fine print. U.S. businesses are eligible to receive up to 500 scholarships for Google Career Certificates on Coursera, valid through December 18, 2024. Eligibility and number of licenses granted subject to application, business verification, and approval by Coursera. Businesses can apply at grow.google/certificates for business. Grow with Google is an initiative to help people prepare for work, find jobs, and grow their businesses. Job seekers can grow their skills in order to find new jobs and advance their careers. Teachers can learn how to put the latest technology to work inside and outside the classroom. Small business owners can build their online presence and find new customers. Startups can learn how to get their ideas the exposure they need to succeed. And developers can sharpen their current skills and master new ones. To learn more, visit google.com/grow. That's it for today. Thank you so much for joining the workshop. I hope you enjoyed it. And good luck on your next negotiation.